All right, hello, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. Hopefully the microphone's working. Let me check. Perfect. Hello, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. Welcome back to the chart stream. I realized I did the timer wrong. It was like 45 seconds left. I thought, nah, not having that. Okay, let's start on time so we can finish on time, and we'll keep this cordial. Starting timer without any further ado. We're gonna get straight into this. Okay, we've got a lot to talk about, and you know, an hour to do it in. So let's get to it. CoinGlass liquidations. We have 328 million. Not too bad. Not too bad. We've got quite a bit of a move happening. We're getting to the point where things are getting to a position where it's looking a bit bleak, or what could occur from this could be bleak. It depends what we do next. Obviously, we've been talking about this. It happened sooner rather than later, which is, good. I mean, I'd rather things happen than not happen. But we've got some stuff to talk about. Today's definitely going to be a more proactive talking rather than a viewership talking. But regardless, about 328 million liquidation, so a healthy amount, not too much. Or we've seen higher, that's for sure. We've seen higher, but mostly long liquidations. Again, we've pumped. I'll get into it, obviously. We pumped. And then we kind of came down, so we hit our area really nicely so far, which we were talking about happening, or I was talking about happening later on, obviously. I think I was one of the very few, probably wrongly so, talking about us. We could stay down where we are a tiny bit long before we go back upwards. We didn't. But from coming to that area, we've then come down in not too far, but swiftly. So I'm not surprised I'm seeing more long than short liquidation. I'm sure if we saw this number a bit earlier on, but this is 24 hours to be fair. I'm sure if we saw this number maybe yesterday going from Tuesday, I'm sure this would be a different story. But anyways, going on to economic calendar. What we had this week, on Tuesday, we had inflation rate. That came out positive. I mean, technically, it didn't have any much. It didn't really have much change. So going from previous to actual, it hasn't really had any change. Obviously, the forecast was different for inflation rate year on year, but it still hasn't changed, even though obviously forecast was technically better, whatever. And other than that, we had a producer price index, I suppose, on Wednesday, but again, that's not really, it wasn't that massive. But if we look at the color of what the number says, simple brain, color look good, color is green, mean us happy. There you go. The Tuesday was happy. Let me check I should probably look at the chat, see what people, see who's here. Let me go to CoinMarketCap and then I can have a look. Kishan, shout to you, Kishan. It's here, and the Genders is here. Mike is also here. KB as well. Thank you all of you for joining. Appreciate you guys. And we also are on Square here. MG the Big Bull, Crypto BTC. Hello to both of you. Triple B, Janice, Mashir. I'll say, I don't want to push your name. I do apologise. Thank you, obviously, for joining. Yeah, it is quiet today, isn't it? It's very quiet. I mean, I think maybe people, the markets go down, people are sad, people don't look at charts. Market go up, people are happy, people celebrate, go have a little party. So, you never win, do you? You never win. Obviously, there is that code, join Binance, or your legs and arms will fall off. Exactly. That's actually true. It's actually quite sad. We did have quite a lot of viewers. It's kind of like the ring. Basically, you look at the QR code at the bottom right of our stream. You look at that, and 7 days later, if you don't scan that and follow the instructions, that's what happens. The arms, legs will fall off. So, I don't know when you guys last saw that QR code. I don't know what your symptoms are currently. But if you're feeling a bit funny, I would suggest scanning that QR code. Because it is like the ring, like I said, 7 days, or maybe 2 weeks. It varies. Obviously, your legs, arms will actually fall off. So if you don't want that to happen, scan the QR code. Put it even to your anyway, without further ado. Okay, that's not Josh, you guys, all right? We're joking. CoinMarketCap. So 95.6, very good, very, very good. Our numbers was 98. We had obviously talking about 99. Have we done in this move? Are we not? Obviously, this is still a question. We are still in this area. I don't think we're fully over. I will talk about fundamentally what we had talked about previously. I'll talk about my pitfall of what I've been talking about and the self-aware aspect of that in last stream anyway, and then we'll talk about what we're doing right now. So 95.679 right now, 67. I don't understand that. I do, but I feel old actually. I'm actually not the first gen. I'm not actually the latest generation now. I'm actually the second latest generation. Gen Alpha's out, and I know I'm on the internet. I see jokes online. And it's been my generation, right? And now this new generation's entering, and I never understood or not understanding something. But now it's to a period. I'm not that late of a generation where I don't understand the joke at all. I understand where it's come from, but you know what I mean. I don't get it. So I'm old. I'm getting old. I'm gonna die soon. That was my clock. That was my internal clock. I thought to myself, if I start to not understand jokes, that's when I'm about to die. So yeah, it's pretty sad. Anyway, 1% down 24 hour. Obviously that makes sense. We just had a massive run upwards from decently lower prices than where we are right now. Obviously I don't know the exact number. Obviously over the last 7 days, about 5% up. We had obviously the trailing 7 days, we had that dump, but if we look at the trailing 7 days, so we look back to last Thursday, we can see we were in that period where we weren't really doing anything and we were still kind of hovering. So the last down move we had is obviously out of the trailing 7 days. So obviously you can't actually see it on the right hand side. If I can zoom out a bit more, you might be able to see it. You can see we have a flat line basically on Bitcoin. It's like it had no pulse or anything. And obviously we had this little rip up. So very nice there. So obviously, about 5% 7 day from the trailing 7 day. So yeah, pretty good. 0.78% down 1 hour. So again, we've pretty much hit a brick wall. We haven't come all the way back down or anything like that. We're still perfectly fine. But obviously we've retraced a tiny bit from our apex of our high. 32894 Ethereum. Now obviously we had some very positive numbers when it came to Ethereum and Solana. So Bitcoin's already at its target. Ethereum, obviously, I was talking about about $500 a bit higher. Obviously, maybe that would be wishful thinking, but if we compare Bitcoin and where it's already been versus obviously Ethereum and Solana. But again, Solana's kind of in its own field, so obviously I was aware of the fact we should talk about that differently. Ethereum obviously has 3750 as a main area. Again, will we get there or not? Obviously, we're going to talk about this as we get into it. But currently, as we stand right now, it's about $3,300 currently. So 1.5% down 24 hour. I don't know exactly what price we got to, but we're in that area anyway. About 5.3% up 7 days. So very similar to Bitcoin again as well there. And yeah, doing pretty well across the board. Solana, 140. That's actually 3.3% down on 24 hour and 2.3% up 7 days. So we've had a different thing with Solana. With Ethereum and Bitcoin, we had that deeper retracement, which was the optimum area. And again, obviously, we've been talking about it for a long time. We had a low to a high. We retraced below equilibrium. We found a decent low and started to go back upwards. On any other textbook, and this is the self-aware aspect of what I'm about to talk about, which is my pitfall. My light has just fallen and in turn knocked my camera. So I don't know if I can be asked to move anything. Damn it, man! Why is this moved? Hold on. I have a hole. I don't have a hole in my desk. I have like a groove in my desk from a bar, and it's hold on. There we go. I just need to put that back to how it was, and I need to get this camera. There we go. All right. That's. I don't think that's how the camera was. I'm just gonna move myself like this. There we go. Okay. That should be good. Hopefully. My desk is 2 parts, and there's a groove, and it sometimes on a blue moon falls in, but I think we're good now. Anyways, what I was saying was, yeah. So Solana, in terms of what we had with Ethereum and Bitcoin, obviously we were talking about the idea that we had, low to a high, come back down to at least 0.5 and lower, wherever it may be, and then find that point to stop going down and then go upwards, which is obviously what I'm going to talk about. Like I said, with my pitfall, again, we're going to talk about it in a second. Yeah, but it was Solana's case, it was a bit different. We had a pretty good trek upwards and hitting into a daily area. So again, the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum, we definitely had areas where we are right now on the 4 hour. Is my camera? I don't even have my camera's in the right position anymore. I'm looking where my camera used to be, and it's not there anymore. Hopefully, I'm not too far. Hopefully, I'm not too badly out of position. Obviously, with Solana's case, it was we didn't really have that main thing on the 4 hour, so it was only the daily. So we haven't really had that major fall down in comparison to Bitcoin and Ethereum. But obviously, we've talked about longer time frame for Solana, and it's all a bit different. We'll go through it again, obviously, in just a bit. So Syrup and Crow, we have Syrup at 37.2. We hit really nicely into the 41 range, or wherever it was exactly. I can't remember where exactly the number was hit. It's about this week, I think it was. Yeah, about 41 free. So this is a really good, really nicely into the area we want to come to for Syrup, and then we start to come back down pretty heftily, which is good news for what we talked about anyway already. And Crow, 10 cent. We're kind of still hovering in our area. We've had this, the high to the low. I think we kind of come to around about here, a tiny bit lower. We can see we kind of came down, hovered a bit. We've kind of come back upwards, but we'll come back down again. So I do still think we want to. I don't think we're done in this move. We haven't really done anything in particular. Technically, we have done a high to a low. We have done a higher. We have done a lower high, so we haven't broken structure unless we can find some support in this uptick we've had and break upwards, I guess. But we'll talk about it when we get to it, obviously. But I don't think that's going to happen personally. But before I get onto the charts, let me check the chat. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, so quiet tonight. Yeah. Yeah, Herman's, yeah, getting out of here. Yeah, it's basically Kishan. There's not a lot of people. You know what? It's gonna be very. You know what? I'm just gonna take it. I'm just gonna basically talk to myself this stream. Again, obviously, I know there are people in the stream. I'm not gonna pretend like that. I'm just talking to myself. But it's definitely a lot quieter in terms of actually talking with people rather than just talking at people, I suppose. But anyway, those are the standings right now numerically. So looking at the actual chart. So we were talking back down here. We were talking here. Talking about the idea that we could maybe see resistance one more time and then come down to its deeper areas once more to about 89 to this area here, just a tiny bit lower than where we would have came to, and potentially see something like that and then go back upwards and continue to find our highs and then eventually hit this area. Didn't do that, and fundamentally we shouldn't have done that, and I was aware of that on last stream, but hey, it's just what I thought at the time. So there you go. So we had that low to the high. We've had that low, and this was perfectly in where it should have been at in terms of this range. We didn't hit into the daily point. I think the daily point, we literally hovered onto the daily point. This was kind of equal lows here on the daily point. We actually formed basically equal line here on this daily low. So we didn't quite, I think we ticked into it. We didn't really get much into it. So I was hoping we could probably go back down into it, but obviously we didn't. Eventually coming back upwards. Starting off on Tuesday, and funny enough, Tuesday at 3 p.m. after Tuesday's 2:30 data open, started to rip. Basically, the rest of Tuesday, feeding into that Wednesday, had a bit of a probably 5 a.m. probably into Asia time. I don't know exactly when Asia time would be for my time anyway. But coming back down a tiny bit, obviously just a bit of a retracement into this area, and then coming back upwards again towards very quickly. Actually, where we want the difference between last stream on Monday, the difference between Monday's stream and today's stream is just crazy. It's just like I've missed the whole of this. I missed on stream anyway. I've missed the whole of this. So anyway, so what we were talking about in terms of our targets on the upper end of things, once eventually we got out of our black box area, whether we go up or down, whatever, and then eventually hit upwards, which is what we want to do anyway, because we started a bit of a move upwards anyway. In terms of what we had locally, we had obviously these high areas, but looking at the most recent highs, again, forming highs, whatever, but these are the main most recent highs in terms of these are lower highs, but our most recent highs, eventually stopping, finding, still doing higher lows, didn't continue to do higher lows here, didn't find any new higher lows, and eventually forming obviously on the way downwards this high, broke above it, came down here, didn't do a new low. I think we came past pretty much all these lows and then reversed it once we actually found that new high, and then obviously coming upwards. So from there, having that massive pump upwards, reversing this area, wanted to use it as support, came back into it here for this nice low here, which we've been talking about over the past how many streams it's been, and then continuing this move here. In terms of the idea anyway of us, if we do continue this uptrend and whatnot, find the area. But this will continue to happen until it doesn't. So what's the criteria for it to not happen? Well, for me, it's probably going to be high time frame support and resistance. I should probably actually look at the power free as well. I'm interested to see if I can keep it in tandem with this. And obviously, I was looking at some other TA aspects. Didn't really like it. Wasn't going to use it. Is it a breakout or a trap for a dump? Well, we will see. Obviously, time will tell. To be the ultimate saying, but obviously, we'll try and see if we can figure out what that might be during this stream, because obviously this is live TA, I do this live, so we will see. So I guess I'll just talk about what we have here so far, and then move into some higher time frames and see what we've got going on, and what we could be doing going into the future. So this area here was the daily area. This is kind of the first main area. We did have some higher. Again, if we go to the weekly, it does range a bit higher towards about 99k, and obviously we have this low here for major resistance on the weekly. And bear that in mind as well. This is kind of weekly resistances. It spans higher from the daily, so this is why. So I drew this initially, this area and this low, but I zoomed in on the daily just so we can have a smaller area, because if we look at the lower time frames and where resistances are in tandem with each other on different time frames, the lower time frame, it's going to be a bit more accurate. As we have more candles printing, we're going to have more closer areas, if you will, because it prints faster, it moves faster. Technically, it moves the same on every time frame, because but in terms of if you look at the candles and zoom out, it's going to move faster. You know what I mean? So case in point, we have the daily candle, and it obviously printed and allowed us to go back upwards and then come down again. In the weekly, we can't see that because obviously it's a weekly print. It takes more days to print than just a daily candle. So we can see it in a bit more detail on the daily. So we can see, if we zoom in, we had it really nicely here. Wicked up all the way up until that end point. Didn't print through the midpoint and or the high end of this gap. So perfectly fine in usage here. 4 hour even here. It's still printing below the midpoint. Really using this area nicely. Came back down. Nice expansion on the way upwards. Very, very strong. So again, this isn't going to be ignored. This isn't going to be ignored. So we will obviously talk about this in a second. But so in terms of the daily, using this really nicely. What I want to bring our bias of what we've already been talking about into now, and then see if it changes when we talk about this. So our bias so far has been obviously across the global landscape of Bitcoin, the idea of us having these nice moves up and moves down, and then continuing. This obviously won't go on forever. We have periods of us having nice moves upwards until we then slow down. As case in point here, we had this. Did we print here? Yeah, technically. We did print here, fine, I guess. We did technically come up, come down for a higher low, come up for a print. We did do a higher low here. So the idea is we want to do this, obviously faltering at 48k and then coming downwards. So obviously this spans into, why could we do this? Well, on the monthly, I suppose you could look at different higher time frames. Like I said here, I want to look at higher time frames. I want to kind of see the differential, because if you look at a trend on lower time frames, there's only a few things you can do to kind of, because again, none of this is ever permanent, none of this is ever confirmed 100%. It's at the end of the day, it's applying risk, it's applying appropriate amount of risk for a beneficial amount of reward, and obviously don't just trade things which just don't make sense. But for me, it's if I'm looking at these trends upwards and looking to see, okay, well, this will stop eventually. So eventually we'll hit a point where we fundamentally hit a high where we then come down quite rapidly. And if you compare, let's say, you say the same thing. So if you look at the 15-minute, let's say, and you have a massive uptrend, and all of a sudden you stop doing that, then it's like, oh, well, why do we do this? And then obviously the people's advice is always going to be, oh, we'll just zoom out, go to the higher time frames, you'll see it. Same thing here. Even though we're looking on the daily and the weekly here, I'm going to zoom out and see what we're doing on the monthly. So I think we can tell the difference between this scenario and this scenario pretty easily, in my opinion. So the scenario we have over here is, we had that high, that significant high, we had that significant low, and then we have this high point where we don't print. And this is, I think, the fundamental of between. And again, we've only had this spanning, 4 to, obviously, again, just only entering into January 2026. 4 to 5 years, coming into 6 now for this. So we've only had 2 scenarios where we've really had major highs and lows come into play. Now, the 2 times we've had these, they've been different stories. So I think for me, it's going to be, why were these different stories? Why were these 2 scenarios so different from each other? And I think it's clear as day we can see why. We didn't do a new high on the monthly. We came past this high very nicely. We failed. We completely didn't do that new high, and then started to print. Once we had that move where we fully printed below this candle, this is now a bad sign. This candle is now a very, very bad sign, because not only is this us kind of starting to print past some of our previous candles lows, this is also now a resistance point. This is actually now resistance. So obviously, coming back into that open, kind of tickling into this gap, but it doesn't really matter the specifics of it. Basically, the main point is, in starting an uptrend, you'd think, okay, well, if we look at the weekly, say case in point, going back to the weekly, we did print on the weekly. It's like, okay, cool, we've printed on the weekly, let's go. We've done a higher low, here we go. And then we don't, and we fail. And I think that probably is down to the monthly, because again, if you're going upwards, I think no matter what time frame you're looking at, for me, this trend we have on this uptrend, this is on the weekly. So I can't just look at the weekly and think this is the be-all end-all. I'm going to be looking at the monthly. So let's apply it now. We can see very clearly these highs and lows. We can see this one. Why did we have this move and we didn't do this? Why didn't we do this? Well, I think very critically because we had this massive move, which allowed us to have that print higher past 74. We had this run up from the lows, 15, whatever. And this is on the monthly, by the way. Again, this is coming from 2023 to 2020. Basically a whole while. Not too. No. Well, yeah, it took a while, to be fair. Basically, the January 2023 up until this first point of 2024, coming up basically in a straight line, give or take, coming up from the lows to the high, producing that high, and obviously having a low. In this case, the difference between this start and looking at retracements is going to be actually confirming that you're in an uptrend. Because we can't just look at a random period. So for me, this is more roughly going to be looking from this low to this high, and looking at that retracement from the most recent low, for having that high to a low, not really moving that too much on that low. And again, if we look at the weekly, we'll see this in a bit more detail. From a low to a high, we didn't do any new lows or anything in this kind of really strong move downwards, and then we start to produce higher from this high, and then eventually print past this high as well in this fell swoop, which is a very good sign for a move upwards. Obviously, case in point, coming from 40k, 74ks all the way up towards 123. Obviously, but then from forming this start, this move upwards, we see this in more detail. We can see it more accurately, where we go from a low to a high, and then have that point here, from a low to a high, and obviously potentially have this point here, which obviously we're talking about. So in this case, it's applying these highs on the way upwards, and we can see, very clearly we have these points which print past these highs in those run upwards. Same here, we have that low, we have this run upwards, very clear prints here, and then a retracement. We've had strong retracements before, and we've, the on the weekly, the amount of times I've compared this move to this move, or even this move to this move occasionally as well. This is a bit different, or it's not different in the sense of it was a different market time. It just printed differently, but these last moves are very, very similar to each other, where we've had these massive run upwards, very similar kind of just a straight rip upwards in both scenarios, and then we've had these pretty strong moves back downwards, quite deep from this. Obviously, this one came from quite a low point, from like about 48. This one obviously only about 74 from about 81, so a lot closer of a low here, but still stands where we have this massive run upwards and a very sharp run downwards, whether it be big or small, whatever. Same thing here, sharp run upwards, and then quite a sharp move downwards from this move, and then obviously will depends. So in terms of structurally on the monthly, I'm not concerned. It doesn't mean it won't continue. It doesn't mean it's completely fine, and there's a 100% guarantee that we will pump from here, and there's a 100% guarantee that I'm not worried in the slightest. It's just obviously stacking our confluence, it's stacking our opinions, it's looking at so many things. Obviously, you don't want to look at 100 different things and confuse yourself, but it's looking at, in my opinion anyway, it's looking at multiple reasonable sources of logic, potential logic. Obviously, it's not financial advice, it's my opinion, which can help you decide if we're still going to be doing this or not. And then obviously it's kind of going from there, really. So I think this is a logical step. We've seen it be logical on both ends of the stick, where we failed to do something and then resulted in the move down, where we've successfully done something and then continued to move upwards. We've successfully done something, or we've okay, I'll probably do it from around about here. Obviously producing these highs and then successfully had a higher low. We've produced past the highs, successfully done a higher low. We've produced past the highs. Will we successfully do a higher low? That's the question, because nothing goes up forever, nothing goes down forever. So I think this is a good thing, but I'm not going to let this be our be-all end-all of the charts. I'm not going to look at anything like the 3 month, because that's a bit much. So I'm just going to go back to the weekly. So monthly, okay, we're fine there. So the difference between this move and this move we've had, I'm happy with. So structurally, then the next question for me would be, okay, if the monthly is that positive and we still proceed to go downwards, what would I think that would be caused by? Well, I think it's going to be caused by this move downwards. And what in this move caused downwards, or what in this move downwards would cause that sort of scenario? Well, it's going to be resistance formed on the way downwards. So obviously we can stack that up. It literally, on the weekly anyway, it's literally this 99k gap with maybe this open to this low of resistance at about 100,790 or it's 100,800 to about 78k for this low. This is a area here for sure, and obviously we have this gap. So that's like the first kind of contending point, which we're already at. We've got to, and this is why it's while I understand why a lot of people are worried, and people who do TA are some of them saying this this might be. I know Mike looking at the bull market support band, and we've printed below it, I believe, in this move, and that we're going up to retest it, and then I know Mike sometimes says we can come down below the bull market support and then go up again, but I know he's very negative because I talked to him just before the stream, and he's talking about it's all over. So obviously we'll see. So in terms of, I understand why people are or some people who do charts are talking about this being a bit of a bad indicator because of what I've talked about on the weekly and the monthly, this being quite a high time period, concerning area, which kind of constitutes a considerable continuation downwards, in theory. But like I said, structurally, I think we're pretty sound. On the weekly, though, to be fair, I mean, it depends on extreme highs, extreme lows, because what I consider being it, obviously, again, like I said, we had this, the reversal of this came from the fact that we printed past this high, and then we actually had most recent low to most recent high, and that's what I'm talking about. So we have to kind of zoom in on the weekly here so we can see it in effect. But then for me, it's the most considerable highs and lows. So it's this considerable low, considerable high up here, considerable low, considerable high, considerable low, considerable high. So it's not exactly each and every little tickle. It's not each and every little move, because in this case we were in this downtrend and then we just stopped. You know what I mean? So for me, it's considerable low, considerable high. Otherwise, we would be looking at this, we'd see reversal, and if we see reversal, we want to see it come past certain lows. So we want to see it come to 40k, which obviously we didn't do. But in this case, from the way I prefer to look, in my opinion, to look at it, is going to be most significant highs and lows, on the way up and the way down. So it's not these intermediary, it's the actual move before we come back down. But obviously, if you were to consider every high and low, we have printed past this low for sure. On the weekly, could be a very bad sign. So I don't know if I've yapped a lot. So I think monthly I'm happy with. I think weekly I'm happy with. So what would have to happen, in my opinion, for us to see 74k? Well, there's one guarantee for sure, which is I feel like I'm cheating when I say this. It would definitely be coming past 81k. This area down here. That's cheating, though, because we're already basically at 74k at that rate, so it's cheating. But for the fact that on the Power of 3, which has successfully done well, I don't use it too much because it's very messy, and it's not exactly price action. I wanted something a bit more structural, but we are at equilibrium for Power 3, and we've tested this on the higher time frame, as I did 2 streams ago, where we looked at how well the lines were used. On every period on the way up and down on whether it be Solana, Ethereum, or Bitcoin, we had a valid usage of each and every line on the way up and way down. The most considerable highs and lows anyway. And where we are right now for this 87-ish K area, this is equilibrium. This is a support area. So the idea being, we come to this area, if we can hold this as support, then this is strong. This is good news. And that we continue this move. Now, I don't know what other people's opinions are on this, but from what mine stands on, and I've done this, I did this exact same thing, and maybe I'll be wrong again, and maybe I'm a horrible streamer, I'm a horrible charter, and I need to retire, I need to go back to programming, and don't ever look at the charts ever again, and just, make things, not trade things. But I did the same thing. I did the same thing last stream, and I failed. And what that thing was me ignoring this structure idea. Because even though we had a low to a high, retrace back below equilibrium, have a solid low, and then start to go back upwards, structurally, I ignored it. I went, even though, and I've said it on the stream, and I should probably get the clip up, I even said, even though we have a valid high, we have a nice move up from a low to a high, we have a valid low below a considerable area, and we're starting to go back upwards, I still think we're kind of going downwards, and lo and behold, I was wrong. Obviously, because I ignored my own methodology, I suppose. So I was wrong. So I don't want to ignore this again. So even though I know a lot of people are negative, and when I say something like, oh, well, my next target for a high, if we do it, obviously not financial advice, is towards that 140k area. Again, I use the same method I did last year to get 125k. So it's the same methodology. It's about 140k. And he's like, well, when are we going to do this? So I know Mike's negative, and I think some of you guys might be negative as well. Some of you guys might be negative as well. I don't know, obviously, what your guys' opinion is. But I'm not going to do the same mistake. I did the same mistake in this move, I think, where I was like, oh, well, even though we have the retracement to this price, I don't think we're going to do that. And we did it. So I'm not going to ignore it. We have a low to a high. We're valid on the monthly, really valid on the monthly. We're really valid on the weekly. And we're at support. We're at support on, Power 3. So, if we do dump past 74k in this move, it's going to be really rough for what I do in my charts. So in terms of that, I don't really think we longevity have a move which significantly brings us past 74k. And if we do that, that's like D-Day for Bitcoin. And I know there's a lot of people who don't do charts. I know CZ's like saying it's a no-brainer for Bitcoin to go to 200k. I know every like there's crypto people, there's traders, and then there's like celebrity traders where it's like they don't do charts. They have a lot of money, whether they've made something and invested, and then they just say these numbers. Oh, Bitcoin's going to 500k. Oh, Bitcoin's going to 1 million. And I think I call them celebrity traders because they're not really doing it like that. They're just saying numbers. But I know they all think, I mean, again, they've said it, and they said, oh yeah, they've been wrong how many times? Someone's probably done a video. I'm sure there's probably a video on YouTube if you search up, them being wrong. I don't know what sort of key phrases you'd use in that search, but I'm sure there's a compilation of them all being wrong, because they are wrong. They have been wrong. I'm sure some of them have been said. I'm sure some of them have said, 450k by 2025, whatever, and we've just not got anywhere near there. So, but I know they're all positive, which maybe they're ill-informed, but CZ's positive and all that sort of stuff. But I've seen a lot of obviously, I know Mike's negative. Darren Crypto Trades, I know he's, on the fence. I don't know about you guys either. So, but I feel like maybe I'm looking the wrong way. Maybe the train's going that way, and I'm looking the wrong way. But I don't personally hold that much negativity still. And whether I be, whether I need to be put out of my misery or not, I don't. I think I want to see how we move. Again, I want to see how we move in this. I think we've come to a critical area of resistance, yes. But if we can solidly utilize resistance in this area, recover the massive move we've had since basically Monday late time coming into Tuesday, the massive move from 91k or whatever it was exactly, we're coming down from about 90k from Sunday Monday time with a massive move upwards. This is structurally sound. This is a massive daily gap. At 93, we have a low to a high, equilibrium about 93.6. We've got massive support in this gap, just default there. If we go down to some 4 hour, if we zoom in, we'll have these areas here. We've got some areas which we've reversed. We have this massive area here, which we've used as resistance once already. We've used the low of it here. We've used not exactly the midpoint. We've come into it here. We've reversed this whole area. So somewhere exactly on the line of 93.6, we have the high end of this range here. We've also got the midpoint, which we've kind of used, which lo and behold, the midpoint actually sits directly where this 4 hour gap sits at 92.8, which is below the equilibrium. So in my system, in my opinion, we've got this area which has multitude of reasons why this could be positive. Now, I know obviously on the 4 hour, if we go from high to low to high and we produce past this 94, yes, we've printed past this major low. But the daily is really where it's at in terms of where it shines. I know this is a 4 hour support point, but I'm using it on a daily. Screw you. I'm doing this. So we have that low to the high. We have that retracement really nice on the daily. The daily is very secure in terms of the most recent low in this area, in terms of most recent low before we move upwards and then come down, and then obviously most recent low, major low in this before we move upwards. So same thing here. Even though we could use this low or all the way back here, the most recent lows, major lows, I should probably use it back here, but it's within this range here, coming upwards and then retracing and then coming down and then doing this. Same thing here. We had this move upwards. We look back, most recent low in this range, and then come upwards. Most of the time, it's going to be that low which forms that coming into support and then go upwards. Regardless if we have more lows here, for example, or here, it's going to be that major low in this range anyway, and then come back upwards. Same story. So I do think, even though we've hit resistance, I do think we can find support here. I mean, this isn't something crazy to say. And this thing on the daily as well. On the 4 hour, yes, we did produce a new high, but the daily we didn't. And we've continued to go upwards because, again, obviously the 4 hour suggests it. We've suggested it on the weekly because we found support. It's only taken some time for the day to actually do that. So for the fact that we've had no real major new lows in this whole area, eventually produced a decently high, a good high into all these, this whole range we've had for the entire time, produced a new major high. And we've only really stopped because we've had previous resistance on the daily. I do think this is a valid place to stop. I do think that it's valid for us to go down towards some of these support areas. So it's finding that area in 93k or whatever for support. But structurally, which again, I ignored this structure over here and I was wrong. So I'm not going to ignore it this time. Low to the high, retrace, well below anywhere we need to go, sitting at that 93k area. I think this could be a valid support area. So I do think we can visit these. I feel like I'm reiterating the same point I said last stream on the opposite way. I do think we can go back up to this resistance area one more time, and obviously on the weekly it expands out towards 99k. Obviously we've got some different resistances on about 99 to 100k. So we have that validity there. So I don't think it's over here. I could be wrong. Obviously not financial advice. I said the wrong thing last stream. So there you go. So I don't think this system on daily is negative, even though we've hit resistance and it could span to be weekly resistance, daily resistance. I don't think it's negative. Weekly, structurally, I don't think we're that. I don't think we've done something. Maybe I need to look in more detail. But on the weekly, I don't think we've done something super significant from what I've seen so far, which has signaled that I think we're going to absolutely dump to new lows, which I know a lot of people have the opinion of. Monthly, I think we're structurally sound. I think that was the deciding factor between last time when we dumped from whatever the high was at, whatever it was at, 60, 69k, all the way down to 15k, was that factor on the monthly. And we don't have that this time. And that's the main thing for me. We don't have that on the monthly this time. We've had this time, monthly was sound. This time, obviously, it is new, obviously, but monthly is sound as well, as opposed to last time where we did go from 69k, and we did do this, from what I've seen some people talk about, this move from 69 to 15k is what some people think we're going to do over here from 125. I know we're coming down to 80k, but, 80 to 99, down below 74k, all the way towards whatever people think it's going to be. So I don't think we're going to have that sort of power. I just realised my thing is too wide, isn't it? I like it being clean. I like it having the colours to be in place. Anyway, I know some people the comparison some people have to this sort of move is comparable to this sort of move we've had previously, and I don't obviously think that is the case, because there is obviously for me there's a fundamental difference between last time being this and this time because of that monthly move, which we don't have. So that's my longer term opinions. If I haven't really got a exact word, because again, it's I want to make sure I'm right, and I don't want to say something too brass. So it's more of a thing where I personally don't think we've done something in this move, and I know this looks very negative, and it is obviously we've come 29% down from that going into November time 2025, from about 115 all the way down to 81k. How much pain can we receive from 31% move down, or coming from the even all-time high 36%? How much more pain can we receive going down another 25%? How much pain can we feel on Bitcoin? What's going to cause the pain? And I feel like Mike, and Mike feels like me, because I think it was this period somewhere, I don't know what period it was, I can't remember, but I was very negative. I can't remember exactly what it was. I was negative, and I think I was right. I was very negative, and Mike was like, what's going to do that? We've got ETFs, we've got this, that, the other. And now it feels like the reverse, because I'm like, well, what's going to cause this? I don't personally think it's going to happen. And Mike's like, what's going to cause us to go to these prices? So I definitely feel like I've only really talked to Mike about this. I haven't really, but I know some of you guys think 100k, which, of our relative scope, I can see that. Obviously, I think we've already talked, whether it be through the YouTube chat or whatnot. We've already talked about what we have going on right now. I think it's pretty clear the 99 to 100k area we have. But long term, I might, from what I know anyway, I might be very alone when I talk about the idea of us not going down past the 74k's. And I might be wrong, but I don't personally believe in it. And this is the only thing which is really causing me to be hesitant about this is in the opposite factor. Do I believe we're going to go past 130k within the first quarter or first half of this year? I also don't know if I can rightfully say that. You know what I mean? So, yeah. That's kind of where it stands then. That's kind of where it stands. And then it's like, oh, well, then if we don't do that, we're going to do a lower high and then we're going to reverse. And that can only happen when the price action does that. And I can only predict that if we fail to do something on a different time frame, which for me is the monthly, obviously, because we don't really do, we can't really we can look at the daily, but we don't really have that on the daily. You know what I mean? And if we go too far down, yes, we are in a downtrend. Yes, we've been printing past lows on the daily. Yes, we are in a downtrend on the daily. But we're also now in an uptrend on a daily. So it's like, what do we, what do I talk about? So then for me, it's the weekly. The weekly is the only what real, long-term, the main area to look at for the wider of Bitcoin. And that's still fine structurally. And then we go to the monthly to go even higher. And that's fine. And even, I need to stop. I can feel myself reiterating the same point. I need to go to Ethereum and actually move on. But then the time when it didn't happen on the monthly, the one other time it didn't happen was when we went from about 70k all the way down to 15k. And that's the difference. So I don't think we have a structural... We're not building our house on sand. I think we're doing it pretty fine right now. I think we've got our steel beams. We built our house on sand. We went, we're too close to the beach. We might need to build a pavement or something and just get away from the water, and then we can build a bit of a high rise near the beach where you can get an elevator and then, go to the beach. But we're actually not on the beach. We need to build a house on the rocks, as God would say. Was it Jesus? I mean, I don't know if it was Jesus or God. I can't remember. But the same guy, kind of. But, I can't remember which way around it was. Yeah. But, you know what? Actually, hold on. I know I've been yapping. I haven't even looked on the... Technically, this could be considered... I mean, that technically not, because the way I have this used is the idea that, we were only just coming up. We hadn't printed above this yet. So it was a scenario where if we were to draw it on here, we hadn't had a major retracement. So you continue from that major low up to the highs. We didn't hit it. We wicked past this. And then continuing that high to a low where we did print back. So that okay, I worried myself then. I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that's how I have it drawn anyway, in terms of my logic. I worried myself. I really did worry myself then, but I don't think it's like that. Anyway, so longevity-wise, I'm not concerned. I'm going to quickly... I know I've got 18 minutes. Gosh, I'm a horrible streamer. I'll quickly reiterate what I kind of glanced over on the 4 hour, and then we can speedily go through Ethereum, Solana, Syrup, and Crow. So yeah, same thing here. We obviously had these kind of gaps. We were obviously expanding really nicely, and then we expanded really nicely, and then we hit our wall, and then we stopped again. We go up until we have reason to stop. We come past our high, brilliant, cool, expand, boom, 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 bang, brick wall, and then we just stopped, and now we're just not doing it. Fine, that's fine. That makes sense. We've done a new high on the daily, done a new high on the 4 hour. We are the most positive right now than we have been, and obviously it's the scenario where, is it like obviously Kishan said, is this a? Oh, I need to read the chat actually. I haven't read the chat. Is it like Kishan said, is it a breakout or a trap? That's the question here. A trap is the definition of a trap in your eyes. That we've come higher to go even lower than we were, being we come past the major area we were kind of seeing down here, or is it to see a big retracement? That's my difference in terms of identity, is what is the identity, because I do think we can come towards 92.5, 93k in this area. I think we've got a lot stacked in this area, and we have valid reason. We've done a very, very structurally sound low to high to higher low to higher high. Do you know what I mean? And yes, we have hit a resistance area, but we hit resistance areas over here. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like this is rare. We've only just started the option on the daily. Only just started we've already been starting on the 4 hour. And weekly wise, we are coming from a position of strong support. This is a order block and this massive gap here, which we haven't printed and failed past. We've been using this as a buy area on the weekly. Again, obviously we have these wicks. This is the lower time frame usage of different areas, but on the weekly, we've been printing in this area at least above this kind of wick area, and we are now starting to expand a bit away from it. So the idea that yes, we will probably see resistance in this weekly area, but is this not an area where we're coming from a area of a significant low point? Because again, we've come down 31% from all-time high. This has seemed to be a strong area which we've stopped at on the weekly. We were expanding so rapidly in these kind of big 4 weeks here, coming down. I mean, if we go again from that all-time high anyway, it might be more. Yeah, actually no, it was more. It was 36% or whatever it was. So we've come down so far. Do you know what I mean? So in this period, and then obviously let's say we come up a bit and come down again, it's like, are we going to really start forming 44% over however many weeks is exactly if you divide whatever number that was by 7? You know what I mean? Like, is it really going to be like that? we'll see, you know, time will tell. But we are coming from a support point which has been utilized in a sense which hasn't been invalidated, and we are coming upwards. So yeah, like I said, I don't think so. Anyway, this is valid reason. Again, we are coming from a support point. We are hitting off of resistance, but we've had a very strong move up from daily in the 4 hour to new highs, producing new highs. Without, you know, even if we didn't have any of this resistance on our left, I still would be thinking, okay, cool, we've done that new high. We've started to slow down clearly. You know, we've done this move. We've had kind of a high. If we look at really in this move anyway, we've had the high, the low, the high, the low, a lower high. We're probably going to print this lower low at some point. We're going to retrace into whatever we have over here. Let's go to the 1 hour, whatever. If we look at what we have going on, you know, we have gap. We have this move down from the gap. We print through this candle here, and you can see we in this move we print up. We can see we retrace into it and find support. We also obviously have the gap on the 1 hour, which we can see we continue to use. This will be a propulsion block as well, but this is the main resistance area, and you can see we have we used it here really nicely, but again continue to fail at this sell area at, you know, 96.8, and then eventually start to expand back downwards. We're probably going to eventually print through this gap, not only on the 4 hour, but on the 1 hour. We've also printed through this, is now negative. We also have a gap here on the 1 hour. If I quickly draw this as well to stack it up, we also have this as a gap area. So we have this sell area, which we obviously was a buy area. We've now reversed. We've obviously reversed it. You can see how well we used it there, and I've reversed it. This will be a strong area, you know, this 96 as a resistance. So you can see we've already started that kind of reversal scenario where we've just failed that new high. You know, we've really failed that new high. So if we could continue to do what we're doing right now, maybe print below at least that 4 hour gap, we're probably going to see major resistance on the 4 hour gap, on this breaker block, on this gap. We've fallen the way downwards. We've got a lot of reason to suggest we're going down, and if we look at really how the move's going on, we don't really have that many expansive moves upwards. We have a really expansive move downwards so far in our move, coming away from a major daily resistance point. So we've got a lot of confidence to suggest we've seen our high and we're probably going to continue back downwards. So we've done a new high on the daily. We've had a massive expansion from a good low, already started an uptrend on the 4 hour on the daily, and now we've hit a valid point of resistance, and we're starting to slow down and potentially reverse on the 1 hour, 4 hour. This makes sense that we're going to start to come down. Where's the next target for me? It's going to be this massive area with this massive daily gap here. We have the 4 hour gap. We have obviously the support we've had previously on the 4 hour, which obviously was resistance, now support. All at this 93, 92.5k area. So that's my stack. That's my stack. That's the whole stack. Yeah, there you go. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm a horrible person. I've spent the whole time talking about Bitcoin, okay? Shoot me. All right, shoot me. I did it. Yeah, all right. What are you going to do about it? So yeah, that's my opinion. Yeah, there you go. Let me put that back. I need to read the chat now. There we go. Good question. No one gets right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. You know, sometimes it's just Chris Lifer, he's just a saint. I don't know. He gets it all right. I mean, you know what he does is he has this 1 minute thing where he has this like break in the 200 SMA, and then he'll go in a long for like 45 seconds, and then he'll see it start to go down. He'll get really scared. Click the flash close. He'll have made, you know, $200 because he put in like $2,000, and he go, yes, that's how we do it, boom, 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 and he's like, he's done it on like 50x or 75x, whatever. He spent like 1 minute in the trade, and he's put a massive amount of capital in, and he's only really made a tiny bit of return, and then he goes on for 15 minutes how brilliant he is. This never loses. Join my 212 club, whatever the bloody hell he's got going on, and that's him. That's Crypto Lifer, and you know what? People love it, and people do it, and yeah, there you go. And fair enough to him. He makes his money, and yeah. He makes money. There you go, and that's all it is really. And there's grifters and whatnot, and you know, it's just whatever. You know, it's just, you know, I do these streams, and you know, it's not a paid group. I just do the thing, and I like to see what other people think, and I like to talk about it. And it's not a paid group. Obviously, you can support us, and we have our chats on certain places. I'm not going to mention, obviously, but it's more about, you know, it's more about doing this I like to do it to kind of go through it out loud, and obviously to see what other people think is kind of the main thing. Anyway, the aim suite, I need to, yes, I've seen you put in your work, KV. Look pretty, it does look really cool. I know you were saying some screenshots in Telegram quite a bit ago. It does look pretty cool. But the aim suite has reset to rebalance, so we could see one more move higher before reversing. Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, and that's just what I'm saying on the weekly. I think on the shorter time in terms of the relative what we're doing right now, coming to maybe 98k, 99k, I think we're in unison. Obviously, you can have a different opinion. You can think wrong with me. But I know we were talking about our targets toward them. For me, it was about 98k, whatever it was. I know you were talking about a front running that 100k. So basically, exactly what we were kind of talking about. So I do think we'll see that. And it's obviously then the point of being, are we going to see that major reversal, which causes us to go towards some of these low prices? Maybe I'm too... I've got my rose-tinted glasses on, and I'm more positive on Bitcoin than I should be, or whatever. We've got that scenario to kind of think about in terms of, or I've got to think about in terms of, are we going to see that major low, or are we actually positive? But anyway, yeah, I have spent the whole hour. Whatever, shoot me. I'm just going to glance over Ethereum, glance over Solana. You know how when I want to, maybe someone else can attest to me. When I want to be fast, I can be. All right, but when I want to talk about something, I'm going to talk about it. I've not watched him, but trust me that, yeah, I know. I mean, again, he's definitely not the worst out of them, like you say. He's definitely not the worst. Probably I've ever seen either. But I don't know. I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't know if it's. I don't know what it is really. There's just something about him, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm a hater. I don't know. I think that's what it is. Well, he doesn't take criticism, and I just think like I don't really think. I don't think he's very true to himself, if you will. He's he doesn't take criticism. If he sees somewhat of a, whether it be constructive, some people could just generally just go, hey, say, oh, you suck, and just say mean things for the sake of it. I get that, and yes, get rid of them. You don't need it. But when even you'll see people in the chat, they'll say something of construct, of something which he can actually take away from and is valid, and he'll ban them, he'll remove them from existence on his channel, say they're a hater, and move on. It's like, and if he wants to do it like that, and people like him for that, sure. But I don't think that's the way to do it. The movement to 95k was a I recognize this, and I might. It's somewhere. I might get it. Is the L liquidity sell side? So what's the double S? Let me think. Hold on, what this could be? Let's think. Let's think. The move up to 90k. Let's think. Sell side. Okay, thank you. I was not gonna get that. I was not gonna get that. Never mind. Spike, sweep, swing, liquidity gap candle. Okay, right. I need to keep on reading that PDF, bro. I need to lock in a bit more. So that sequence is designed to trap traders. Is that to trap? Oh, I didn't even have a look at that. I haven't even looked at the chart area. Oh yeah, there it is. 2 days ago. Okay. Right. Okay, so this is something common. Okay, cool. I get it. So the trap. Okay, great. Right. So this is to pretend to do one thing and do the other. Obviously to trap traders. So is this like a too positive to handle, retrace, and then do its thing? Is what I imagine it is. Okay, yeah, I could definitely see that. Again, if the exact terminology, and obviously you know a lot better than me, translates into having a move downwards from my camera's gone blue. Am I still in? I'm not sure. Am I? There we go. I've got these fancy Chinese cameras, all these tech going on. I've removed the tracking 3 times. It doesn't go away, so I can't do it anyway. So if it translates to the resultant move downwards, then 100%. I agree. 100%. I have 5 and 6 minutes, so let's just get this going. So we're still in this area. So we have gone up. We have done this new high. Not strong. We're still seeing mad difficulty in this area. Not really done too much, but we have a solid high, low, high, solid. I'm still going to move this, and I'm still going to talk about it. So, continue this, obviously, coming upwards. Major daily, check, and this sits below 3229. We have, let's go down. So we have all this area. We obviously have previous areas below here. We have this area, which is a mitigation. Here, which we'll probably look at the high end of it. So we have that low end of it there anyway. But we kind of have the main whole area, which I have drawn. I actually drew one on Solana, I think, actually. So let's draw this out. Oh, it's getting really messy now, isn't it? I need to delete some of this. So this is a mitigation we have here. From the moving past the high and then printing through that low, and you can see we use that low as resistance there really nicely in this gap as well. So you can see obviously we reverse this area. This could be a general area of support. We also have this bounce range, I believe, probably closer on the daily or the 1 hour. I can't remember which time frame. Right. Either way, we have it there, obviously printing through that very nicely and gapping through it here. So not only do we have this area, which we can see we're using quite nicely, we also have the main area we're using right now. Hitting into previous resistances. What is this line? I must have drawn this for a reason. What is this? Okay, this is resistance. So this is... Okay, cool. So we have this single candle moving upwards into resistance and then a massive print through. And we have the open of it there. I sometimes draw the open, I sometimes draw the low of it. So either way. So we have that there anyway. We have the rejection block as well. I think I might have talked about that rejection block. I'm going to make this blue because I think it might have a bit more contrast. It's so horrible, this chart. I need to clean this up. So we have that order block there. You can see that open real nice there. You can see we're staying below its midpoint. So we're having resistance there pretty nicely. Pretty nice resistance in this rejection block and that order block. We see we're using this previous bounce price range reversal pretty nicely. But either or, whether it be these direct ranges quite nicely here. Really nice, actually. The main thing is obviously going to be this massive gap. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? So we have that there. I still think majorly we're going to probably recover the majority of this move. The red area... or somewhere at least below, in theory anyway, the 3229. Main thing obviously being from this daily gap here. You can see the midpoint of this is just about below that there as well. And obviously we have the midpoint of this mitigation block of that. And also sits at the same place the daily gap sits. So we have, I think, 3224, similar to how Bitcoin has roughly the red line midpoint, about 93k, wherever it was. I think the main thing for me is going to be that area at 3227-ish. I'm going to put a line there, just lie in the sand, to kind of suspect where it could potentially be. That's kind of my understanding. So I do think we can come down. I think we'll probably move in unison. I reckon we'll probably move in unison. We've got valid resistance. We obviously have reversed some resistances to support, as we talked about, with this bounce price range here. You can see we're using quite nicely. And we are using, obviously, on the 4 hour or the 1 hour here as well. So, yeah. But obviously, you can see we've had this slow move upwards. We had... very strong high, very strong low. And then you can see we kind of took past this high, didn't print. Number one, actually, no, we technically did print there. Either way, though, we also can move past this low. But importantly, we've come up one more time and we haven't printed a new high. And obviously, we're now coming towards this low. Haven't quite printed anything in significance just yet. But we haven't done, we haven't printed, in terms of where we printed, we've kind of equaled out, but we haven't done a new high in terms of having a solid move upwards. We've definitely slowed down. Whether it be we don't go up one more time or not, we haven't technically printed that new low to start that reversal and start to move downwards. Bitcoin hasn't quite done that yet. I think both Bitcoin and Ethereum are in very similar scenarios where Ethereum hasn't done it but is there. Bitcoin hasn't done it but is there. You can see on the 1 hour and the 4 hour we're coming past that low. We haven't printed, we haven't fully formed the reversal, but we are there. So same thing here. We haven't quite done that, so it's not saying we can't go back upwards towards certain areas back up here. But we, again, the idea that we have major resistance areas, at these different areas, whether it be the order block, the midpoint of this rejection block. Obviously, we can see we put it up there. We kind of use this area here. We then stopped at what's this line? What's this line? What's the starting? Oh, this is the start of the weekly, which weekly's too high to whatever. This is, I think, arbitrary. This is the weekly. I don't think the weekly and the 1 hour are going to translate. But anyway, we obviously came down again towards the bounce price range, and then we use that range. We're kind of range bound here, but we are slowing down. I do still think we can eventually see this move downwards. I just think, for me, rather than saying different things with different coins, I think Bitcoin and Ethereum, potentially Solana as well, will move relative in unison. or especially Bitcoin and Ethereum anyway. And then it's like, okay, so where's the price going to be? Which I think for me is going to be sitting within the realm of this 3225, 3227 area, I do think. So we'll see how that goes. But that's kind of my initial number anyway. Okay, so Solana, what do we have? So we've had this resistance area previously. We haven't printed a new high. We had have I not drawn this daily gap out? I guess I haven't. We had daily gap here. We obviously had the order block, which is now a breaker on the daily, which you can see we've been using quite nicely here. We've actually started to come to the top end of things here. We haven't printed through it though, which is kind of the main thing. We want to print through those lows. Same thing with gaps. You want to print through those lows or highs to really confirm a reversal point to use it as support resistance. We haven't done that. Came to the top end, found this gap, came to the midpoint, and you can see we've kind of rejected from that period. We did try. Printing through the midpoint and bringing through the lower high, it's like a step process. It's not a confirmation. I think if we were to do this and print through it and then come down, I definitely think it would have been a stronger support. We then obviously came above that midpoint. We then tried to use it, and then we really did come to this top end of things, especially here as well. I do believe coming up into this gap and then reversing right back down. Well, not reversing, but retracing right back down for this massive wick here. This is the idea of rejection block. Even though that body isn't quite too tiny, we have a massive wick, massive retracement from a point of interest being this gap on the daily, and you can see how nicely we printed that midpoint there. If we go to the 15-minute, I want to see it a bit closer. You can see, we really did sit in this area, but we have a bit more rejection block on the 15-minute. You can see the same story here on the 15-minute as well. You can see how nicely we use that midpoint for the rejection block coming from that gap on the daily. So same concept we had on Bitcoin, same concept pretty much every single time, is the rejection block being that massive wick from a point which is resistance. I suppose is the best way to describe it. The difference we've had with Solana is we haven't really had much structure. We've had a very horrible structure where we haven't actually had major retracements. So in terms of my books, absolute failure. We have had periods where we have had these major things, but what I will say, same thing here. It's not purposely. It's not trading for the sake of it. It's finding the most likelihood. So it's literally going to be, I'm just going to move this up. And it's not a thing where we want to short down to these areas. It's an idea we want to come up from these areas. But anyway, from the low to the high, I'm still going to keep this here. Even though this was a very nice, solid buy area, we had this massive order block. We had a gap, boom, form order block, or form this massive candle downwards, printing through it here, using support, and we had this gap. Good usage there, boom, coming upwards. Same thing here. We kind of had this area here with this candle. Well, it's actually these two candles coming down into a point of support and then printing above it here. And you can see we kind of sat at that rough midpoint. We also had more of a valid area, I believe, maybe with, I don't know what this is, a daily gap, I suppose. Yeah, the daily gap here, you can see we're printing out that daily gap a bit closer, midpoint here. Anyways, using that there and then obviously printing upwards and then using this top end here as support there as well. So we kind of have a support point here. And then we kind of have been fighting within this area of support here, kind of fighting at this midpoint, coming upwards, fighting up here, coming downwards. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a bit of support here, came up one more time and continue back downwards. If we do continue downwards, which is what we could be doing on Solana. But like I said, difference with Solana and Bitcoin and Ethereum is that there is obviously a difference. I didn't mean anything. I just said, I just didn't really say anything then. Where we do have these major highs and lows, and I would consider this the major low. So we haven't reversed yet in terms of this move, but considered to the actual move, we have the high, the low, a lower high, and then we have this low which doesn't quite print through here, and another low in this gap here, which we can look at probably on the 1 hour and see it in a bit more detail, coming into that kind of rejection block, just the general resistance area, and then eventually reversing this, and we actually have printed through this. We've kind of come to this 4 hour gap and we've kind of slowed down. We haven't stopped or anything, so wick past lows, bit of support, come to a gap, support, so I wouldn't be surprised if we come up one more time again, and then from there we have a tiny gap here I suppose, but we also have a previous area here which you can see we've kind of come into once here. We haven't printed past that low, but in terms of the general trend we've had here, we have had a bit of a reversal to start come downwards. And considering where we've come from, I wouldn't be surprised if this continues to be something a bit stronger. So I'm still going to hold out for this area. We've actually printed a proper on the daily. Oh no, we haven't. Not allowed. Sorry, I didn't actually look properly. We haven't done anything on a daily. And then from there, yes, we've had this major area here on the weekly, which would be nice. Again, the same thing across the board with Solana, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, where we've come to these major supports areas and looking for some of these high trend or higher time frame trend upwards areas of support, of resistance in this case anyway, I should say. I think, again, the major difference is I do want to see Solana come to these lows. Whether it do that or not, obviously, different story, not fast advice. We'll get there when we get there. But the difference actually is, in this case, I categorically do want to see it. You know, we had this nice trend on the weekly, massive fail to print past, massive dump, which prints past the low, massive retracement for a lower high, and we're coming down. I want to see a down move. Now, again, it's the same thing. I say this on the way up, I say this on the way down. We can't completely ignore supports on a way down or resistance on the way upwards if we're in a downtrend, but they won't be categorical reversal points which start to go back up to $300. So same thing here. We have a considerable support point on the weekly, which again we have used previously, we use again, but I don't think it's going to be a scenario where we actually see it as an area which stops us completely. So I do want to see that retracement. And what we have on the weekly, same thing we've looked at on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's is lower down. Bitcoin's is 99k, but Solana's and Ethereum's are a lot higher. So whether and I could be on the fence here, whether Ethereum and Solana kind of outplay Bitcoin and Bitcoin kind of slows down at these areas and Ethereum and Solana go up or not, obviously is different. But Solana pumping upwards $22 or 22%, sorry, in a week, it's probably not likely. So we don't really have much on the weekly apart from the daily here. So this is probably a correct relative area for Solana and whatnot. So yeah, I don't think we might not even see these areas. It is 22% up, I will say. I think I said that last stream as well. Like, I'll be surprised if you really come into these areas. But where we are right now is just to really concern ourselves with the current trend. Where we are right now with Solana, I think is a valid area to stop. Anywhere is a valid area to stop. I do want to come to see a major move down for Solana. I do want to see it. We haven't seen it. I want to see it. Now, what I will say, to be fair, what I will say with this move is, relative to the actual trend on the daily, we haven't seen that print high to suggest we want that low. So that's probably why we haven't really seen a major retracement, as opposed with Bitcoin, obviously, in this case, now anyway, with the daily, and Ethereum now. Solana still hasn't seen it. We haven't seen that print higher. But yeah, I think for me, it's mainly been, obviously, the 4 hour. We've had that trend downwards, and we've been trending upwards. So, you know, we can still see it on the 4 hour, but obviously the higher time frame takes more of a bias than the lower time frames. But yeah, even on the daily we have major reversal as well. I thought that with this order block, obviously we came a bit higher into it. I thought midpoint was going to be the stopping point, 143. We've come a bit higher to 148. So we've come to here. I do want to see it retrace. So same thing with I have with the other coins. So I do think we'll come down. I'm going to quickly glance on SERP. We've done really well. Came to this midpoint of our gap. Obviously the weekly gap here, or daily gap in this case, coming up above the red line area, pretty good. Coming upwards, I don't know what this red line is. I think it's the weekly range, but we've hit obviously into our sell area pretty nicely here. I don't know what I was drawing with these lines. I don't know what I talked about. I think I was just like yappering about it or something. I can't remember. Whatever. We have these areas. We had gaps. Whatever. We've come into the gap. We've come down. We have these lows on this way upwards. Really choppy. Printed past major lows here on the way downwards. We haven't printed past these major lows, but you can see, you know, if we really look at us on the way upwards, especially on the 4 hour anyway, we definitely have these as major lows, and we've printed past them. I think categorically. Daily wise, not so much. I think we really just have a major. We kind of have like, you know, a major move up from here, and then we have the kind of lows down here, and a major move up from here, and then we start to kind of slow down a bit. So we do have a gap here, to be fair, on the daily. Do I think it's going to be a move? Do I think this is going to stop us from moving all the way down? No. Again, SERP is in its own world. I don't think we need to hold SERP to the same standards we hold Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana at. I've said this last stream before, all this sort of stuff, and I still think we're in that play for 21. I said 21 all this time ago, and I remember specifically talking about around about here when we talked about this. No, we talked about this actually. No, I lie. I said, okay, we've missed my area, but we've gone upwards. Okay. But obviously, like I said, I remember talking about this area. I was like, we've actually missed any sort of support. This area isn't support, but we've gone upwards. Fine. But eventually, all things unravel in their own ways and in their own time, and eventually we've come down into somewhat of an area. But like I said, we haven't come into this weekly gap. We haven't really retraced into a major point in this weekly order block here. I do want to, oh no, actually a breakup block, I should say. I do want to see it come down to this area. Again, I think we have validity on that on the weekly. Again, we've had a major downtrend. We haven't reversed. We've printed past this major low. This is, if any point in the history of SIRP is going to be negative, it's right now. We have this massive gap on the, okay, not financial advice. I'm over on, don't clip this. We have a major gap here. We've printed past a major low. And yeah, there you go. I mean, that's pretty much it, really. We have this major move down, major gap on the daily, weekly, all this sort of stuff. We've retraced into it. We've printed past a major low, and we're still coming down. And we haven't hit. Again, we go down until we have reason to stop, or reason proven otherwise. There's no support here. There's no support here. Only up until around, arguably 26 cent is when there's support. And yes, I know we did stop here, but in terms of major support on the weekly, relative to the weekly time frame where we've gone upwards and gone down over the course of basically a year, is what I consider, not these little moves, over the course of a month. I don't concern myself with those sorts of candles, five candles. It's the whole move. And for me, I don't care if we saw a bit of support here. Maybe these two equal lows here is what we saw a bit of a reversal point at. But for me, on this time frame, for the actual move on the weekly, it's going to be this 21 cent area. And I know Mike's like, oh, we'll sell at 50 cent. I don't know if will we see 50 cent before we see down here? I might be wrong. Not financial advice. But I don't know. I think we're going down. Crow, yeah, same story. I'm not really going to give too much of an update. I don't care what we're doing right now in terms of, we've gone up a tiny bit. We had a gap on the daily. I drew it out. We saw resistance. We didn't get above it. We printed within the low of it. We've started to come back downwards. Yes, we had a low. We had some highs here in this range. We had like some equal lows here, which didn't print past this low, I suppose. And yes, we did go upwards, but I don't think it's going to hold any support. I don't really see this. And I might be wrong again, like I said, on the 4 hour, the daily is the range I care about. We have printed higher than some of these most recent highs here. And I want to see this retrace towards 9.5 or 9.6 cent. That's it. That's the stream. I'm 10 minutes over. I'm a horrible streamer. I apologize. We'll see how it goes. I'll be back Saturday. I am working on integration with Twitch. And you know what? I might just throw in Binance Square. And I need to talk to Francis, actually, about the validity of getting the chat from Binance Square. But we might try to do some more areas of streaming. We've got Twitch. I'm re-updating the YouTube system, and I'm going to kind of try and overhaul the game to make sure there's no lag. So that might be nice for the next time we play, which will probably be next week's Wednesday. We didn't do it this week. We'll do next week's Wednesday. So we've got Twitch. I'm going to ask Francis within today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow, if we can include Binance Square. So obviously, Binance Squareans, this is good news for you. If you've ever come to play our quizzes and you realise you can't play on Binance Square, there might be some news for you. We might be trying to fix that if I can get Francis on board. So that's something to look forward to other than next time I stream. I'm actually also on tomorrow at 5 p.m. my time, I think, on a stream on Bitcoin versus tokenized gold. And we're talking about prediction markets, which should be a very interesting conversation. So if you're ever interested in me talking about a debate on Bitcoin versus tokenized gold, or me talking about prediction markets, then I am streaming tomorrow. I'll probably try and post a link in Telegram. So if you do come to that, I think it might be on Binance Square. So if you do want to come along to that, there you go. I'll post a link to it. If not, I will definitely see you on Saturday, where we'll have a look at what happens since then. So thank you all of you. Appreciate you, each and every one of you, for coming on the stream and spending time watching me meander upon the charts and yap about the charts. So if you enjoyed it and it's the first time and you want to see more of it, do go to come along. Do go to obviously our channel. Obviously subscribe, follow, notifications, all that sort of stuff. But obviously do come along on Saturday. So thank you all of you. Obviously, try and keep Twitch and Telegram. I do try busy myself, and sometimes I don't have Telegram open, so I do apologize if I do miss your messages for a day or two, whatnot. I'm not always on Telegram, but when I am on Telegram, I do try and go over everything which has been sent. So yes, but if you do join there, the link is in the description. Thank you. See you guys Saturday. See you guys tomorrow if you do join that stream. See you guys on Telegram. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great. If you don't join me tomorrow and I say hello, have a great rest of your week going into the weekend. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.